What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're here with some more NFL DFS picks and lineup advice for DraftKings and FanDuel. This time for the single game showdown slate on Thursday Night Football. It's Week 15. Fantasy playoffs are starting this week. Tonight, we kick it off with the Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers. Welcome, I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, single game $1 million winner. In this video, we will talk about the injuries that impact tonight's slate, and particularly there is one that we have to monitor throughout the day that will greatly impact our lineups. We will talk about low risk lineups and core plays, 50-50s, double ups, head to heads, the foundation of those lineups. And of course, we will talk about the picks, strategies, and ideas to help you win the biggest prizes that DraftKings and FanDuel have to offer for tonight. A quick reminder, again, I say this every video, at least I've been saying it for the past couple of weeks. The schedule gets crazy for the NFL over the next coming weeks. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel here on YouTube. It is free to do so. That way you get notified whenever we post videos for the two-gamer on Monday, the Christmas slate on Wednesday, the random Saturday slates, you name it. By subscribing, you'll get notified when we publish any free videos here on YouTube. All right. Let's talk about the injuries that impact tonight's slate. We will start with the visiting Los Angeles Rams. And Demarcus Robinson is questionable. Their wide receiver 3. No practice on Monday, no practice on Tuesday. It was limited on Wednesday. However, Sean McVay says he believes he'll be healthy enough to suit up. So we will proceed with the assumption that Demarcus Robinson plays tonight. If he is for some reason ruled out later today, then Tutu Atwell would be the wide receiver 3 at $3,900. Sorry, at $2,600 on DraftKings, and he would be incredibly popular as a result. But we believe that Demarcus Robinson will play, as we'll trust Sean McVay here. Davis Allen, who was starting for a bit and then dropped back into the rotation. Not really sure what the hell the Rams are doing with their tight ends, but Davis Allen is questionable. Similar practice pattern to Demarcus Robinson. Didn't practice Monday, did not practice Tuesday, but got in a limited practice yesterday. He's a little more iffy just because we haven't heard anything about it. But I would assume he plays as well and rotates with Parkinson and rotates with Hunter Long. If he's out, that's just more snaps for both of those guys. I imagine we'll hear some news later today at some point. Obviously, we have to know for sure by 6:50 p.m. Eastern. And again, on a typical main slate, this would just not be news that we care about. But on a showdown slate, every player is important. And him being out would just open up more opportunities for Parkinson, give us more opportunities to play more stars and scrubs with Parkinson as the punt. So monitor Davis Allen's status throughout the day. On defense, the Rams are missing their outside corner, Kobe Durant. Maybe Emmanuel Forbes, who they brought over from the Washington Commanders, will be active tonight. Either way, down a starting corner is not good when you're facing Jawan Jennings. You're now facing Deebo Samuel. So a little bump up to the San Francisco passing game with Durant's absence on the outside for the Rams. Now, on San Francisco side, the injury news that everyone is monitoring, especially those of you who are in fantasy playoffs and pick this guy up off the waiver wire, it's Isaac Guerendo, who performed admirably last week in the absence of Christian McCaffrey, of Elijah Mitchell, of Jordan Mason. He is the starting running back for the 49ers now, rookie draft pick this year. 26.8 DraftKings points, just with Chris Johnson-like efficiency this year. For those of you who played fantasy football back in the day, Chris Johnson, 5 yards per carry, a threat to house it anytime. I mean, just look at 2 targets, 50 yards last week. So Guerendo has performed when he's gotten the ball. And even if it's just a couple of touches, he has performed. Either way, he left last week's game late with that foot injury. And there was some murkiness around his status. Didn't practice Monday, didn't practice Tuesday. And for the longest time, just thought that he was probably going to be out on a short week. However, returned to a limited practice yesterday. Adam Schefter reported this morning that Guerendo himself reports that he is feeling fine and good to go, and he will start tonight. So we have nothing to do but to trust that. However, I know a lot of you are shaken to your core by Kyle Shanahan's antics. Just think of the Christian McCaffrey news all the way back in week 1 when McCaffrey was seemingly fine and just didn't play, and then it was Jordan Mason. Now, we don't necessarily think that's the case here, but it is a possibility. Let's monitor pregame inactives. We'll know for sure at 6:50. National reporters are going to be our best indicator here. Now, local beat reporters might have some insight, but it's the national reporters who are going to tell us if Guerendo is limited or out in any capacity. If Guerendo is out, again, we don't believe this to be the case, but if Guerendo is out, Patrick Taylor will draw the start. He's been on the team pretty much the entire year. He'll draw the start. He was the first guy up last week after Guerendo left the game. And then Keyshawn Vaughn will mix in as well. Keyshawn Vaughn got a couple carries late last week. And then they did sign Israel Abanikanda from the Jets practice squad a week and a half ago. And there was an article with some quotes from Kyle Shanahan saying Abanikanda is still learning the playbook. We can maybe mix him in once he's ready. Didn't sound too promising for him taking over the backfield tonight, even though he may be the most talented of the trio if Guerendo is out. So imagine he'll be active. How much work he'll see if Guerendo is out is another question. But we will have some uncertainty if Guerendo is out. However, as of now, we are proceeding with Schefter's report that Guerendo will be fine and have his regular workload. All right. Anything else? Okay. The 49ers may get back two star defensive players in Nick Bosa and Dre Greenlaw. They're both questionable. Short week. Still, the vibes are that they're another week away. But let's monitor. We're not going to really make any upgrades or downgrades in our projections as a result, but it's something to monitor if you're looking to play San Francisco's defense tonight. All right. Let's talk about low risk lineups now. 50-50s, double ups, head to heads, where you just have to beat half the field to double your money. And typically, we like to play both quarterbacks, both running backs when they are workhorses, play any obvious values, play any high value pass catchers. And we can actually make the core strategy work tonight. Let's just show you really quickly what it looks like. So we play Brock Purdy. We play Kyron Williams, obvious workhorse for the Rams backfield. We play Matt Stafford. And we play Isaac Rindo, assuming he's fully healthy, at $8,400. That leaves us $4,150 left per player. Now we can go down and we can play Colby Parkinson, if you like him, or if Davis Allen's out. And then we can play... That doesn't give you much. So maybe we swap Purdy for Guerendo or Kyron and see what that does with our remaining salary. You could play Tutu Atwell. He will be the next most popular guy in this range at $2,600. Not running a ton of routes. Ran 20 last week when Demarcus Robinson was banged up a little bit. But still seeing 10-plus routes per game, 2-plus targets per game. So Tutu will be a fine play in low-risk contests because that would allow you to get up to Jake Moody or Jake Carty as a kicker, and that would be a fantastic low-risk lineup. However, one, we're leaving out Puka, who's been absolutely scorching the earth since his return from knee injury. And his 44.8 DraftKings points last week will be difficult to leave out of your lineup. However, what the field is going to do, they're ignoring basically that full strategy of quarterbacks and running backs. Sometimes it'll line up, sometimes it'll be close, but there are some slates like tonight where the field is not doing that. The field basically is building San Francisco heavy. They're playing Brock Purdy, they're playing Isaac Rindo, they're playing Deebo Samuel, they're playing George Kittle, they're playing maybe Juwan Jennings. Some combination of this, we're seeing 4+ 49ers in what the industry optimal sites are out there. So that's interesting because we have a really solid low risk approach by playing a balanced, both quarterback, both running back, locking up all the scoring, but we're not doing what the field is doing. So that really doesn't make great sense for a low risk lineup. That's the opposite of low risk. But if you feel confident in your approach, confident in your lineup building, there could be a big edge in low risk contests tonight as a result. Now, if we go over to FanDuel, we've seen this phenomenon lately where they've just been really pricing down guys. As a result, we end up with more duplicated lineups at the top. We end up with more two quarterback lineups than we've ever expected. Because, for whatever reason, Matthew Stafford is $12,500. Purdy is only $14,000. Guerendo is only $12,000. I don't know why they're pricing it like they're pricing it. Again, typically we're looking for much better pricing from the sites, and they've been better, at least on DraftKings they've been better. But FanDuel, not great, because you can play Brock Purdy, Kyron Williams, Matthew Stafford, Isaac Guerendo, and now you have $7K left per player, and you could play Ricky Pearsall, you could play Colby Parkinson, you can punt the final spot. Not a big deal. The problem here is you're leaving out Puka, which we don't mind, right? Even if you play, the Monday night slate, and you faded Jamar Chase in low risk, you still got there because the two running back, two quarterback approach still worked in low risk lineups despite fading Jamar Chase and his million points. The same could happen tonight with Puka Nacua because of the pricing. Now, the problem here is we actually have super underpriced Deebo Samuel at $9,500. Juwan Jennings just $10,500. I mean, these guys should be $4,000 more expensive, as should some of the quarterbacks. So it's not as straightforward as Monday night slate was with similar pricing because the field will not play. They'll play something like this. They'll play similar to DraftKings where they're playing multiple mid-range guys, and then you could play Cooper Kupp, you could do whatever else, but they're playing still 4 49ers in a lineup, despite a game where the spread is just 2.5 points. The reason for that is, I know a lot of you may look and say, the spread is close, lineup builds should be balanced, but a lot of times it has to do with pricing. It has to do with how the teams distribute the ball on offense. And because we get this super soft pricing on San Francisco's side, combined with how San Francisco operates their offense, we're going to end up with the field building pretty San Francisco heavy tonight, which is a great lean into the high risk section, and we talk about how we can get different and try to beat lots of people to win a lot of money tonight. So yeah, because of all that I just described, we're going to see so many 49ers heavy lineups. And there aren't a ton of great low-owned plays tonight, which I will talk about in a second. But if you just start building 3 Rams in a lineup, 4 Rams in a lineup, or get really crazy 5 Rams in a lineup, the field is not building that way tonight. You automatically get a distinct advantage in your lineup construction by building that way. And it's probably one of the best ways to build tonight because it's not like we get this team limping into the final couple weeks of the season, just trying to get out of there. No one on offense. It's not like a bottom of the barrel team. It's the Rams, decent offense. We can play Stafford, Kyron, all 3 receivers, the backup tight ends, the starting rotational tight ends are cheap. Kickers are an option. Defense can still get there against Brock Purdy. Blake Corum, backup running back. Tons of options. It's not like we have overpriced, poor performing players. Tons of options to choose from on the Rams. And that seems to me like the easiest and the best high risk approach tonight is to play balanced and or Rams heavy lineups in your high risk contest. Now, I mentioned Deebo. Let's talk about him a little more. Deebo is just 7,600 on DraftKings. And look at his game logs, right? I mean, this dude hasn't scored more than 6 DraftKings points since week 10. Hasn't scored 20 fantasy points since week 6. So we shouldn't be rushing to play him, right? Well, it's funny. I was looking for Isaac Rindo news Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And basically every report coming out of San Francisco was not about Isaac Rindo. It was about Deebo Samuel and his lack of involvement and how they need to give him the ball. It started with Deebo's tweet saying, I'm not frustrated. I'm just not getting the ball. And then Brock Purdy came out and said, we got to get Deebo the ball. I want Deebo to do Deebo things. Kyle Shanahan came out and said, we got to get Deebo the ball more. So we have this perfect storm of propaganda for Deebo Samuel to get a ton of targets in a game, on an island game, where he hasn't been performing lately. Ideally, this would be the perfect storm for high-risk contests and leverage. And that was my first thought. I was like, damn, we're going to get a great leverage spot on Deebo, who hasn't been performing. Yet we got all these quotes in the squeaky wheel narrative. He's going to get the ball a ton on Thursday night. And then finally, I opened up the pricing last night, and I see that he's just massively underpriced, $7,600, $9,500 on FanDuel. And the industry sites and the field won't miss this. It's not because the industry, and it's not because casual players have read the news and know that Deebo is in a squeaky wheel spot. It's just because his regular projection in this matchup is underpriced for this role. So it's super frustrating because we had a smash spot on Deebo at potentially low ownership if he was priced up more. But because he's priced so cheaply on both sites, we actually don't get a big advantage. He's going to be one of the most popular players on the slate. So that makes it tough because, yes, he looks good from a subjective standpoint. But when you combine the ownership and you combine his game logs, now we're basically 12 hours later, I'm flipping and saying it's probably better to fade Deebo, despite what the coaches and what Brock Purdy is saying, because they can say they want to give him the ball all they want, but when you got a game log of 5, 5, 3, 6, 12, that's not really screaming, you must play me at $7,600. So Deebo, and this is where ownership comes into play for those of you who have questions about high upside and players and ownership and how do I balance lineups, and it's an ownership game. If Deebo was 15% owned, we'd be looking to slam him here. But if he's 50% owned, like we expect him to be, that seems like a much less. It seems like not the best spot in the world to play Deebo if he's going to be that highly owned, given his recent performance. Now, saying this, he'll get 20 targets or 20 touches, and he'll outperform, and he'll be the optimal captain. Just something you have to balance with the rest of your lineup. All right, let's talk about Garindo a little bit more. Again, we can only assume that he's healthy. Schefter reported that he's healthy. But let's just play what if for a second. And what if Garindo isn't fully healthy and he splits carries? Or, God forbid, he's limited or is just an emergency only. Or if he re-aggravates his injury. All these things are possible. Likely? No. Possible? Yes. Now, maybe to all of my screams on these YouTube shows, but DraftKings priced up Patrick Taylor, his backup, to $7,400, which, if Grindo's fine, Patrick Taylor is overpriced by like $6,000. I prefer this. I like this. We should all enjoy this. It's much better. As a result, Patrick Taylor is going to be, 1% owned, 5% owned, maybe at most. So if Garindo is limited or gets hurt or is this completely an emergency-only guy, Patrick Taylor would benefit the most at super low ownership. So if you want to play Patrick Taylor, the only way he gets there is if Garindo does not get there in 99.9% of scenarios. So I would make a rule if you're building 20-plus lineups using our lineup builder, using any optimizer, max one of Garindo and Patrick Taylor on DraftKings because of their pricing. Let's look on FanDuel just really quickly. So Garindo is $12,000, right? Yes. Patrick Taylor is $10,000. We'd have the same idea here. We'd want max one of Taylor, max one of Garindo. If Garindo's limited out, whatever, we talked about Keyshawn Vaughn. Keyshawn Vaughn is $7,500 here. Abanikanda is also $7,000. On DraftKings, great job. They priced them up. Vaughn, $3,400. Abanikanda, $3,000. So not $200 plays that we must play if Grindo is limited or we get news that he's out. Either way, those are guys you want to mix into your 20 max and your 150 max if you believe that Grindo has a chance at being limited at all tonight, which we cannot say for certainty that he's going to be 100% healthy. So I think on a slate where we're looking for low-owned plays, we're looking for differences in our player pool, I think you have to reach for those guys and not play them in Grindo lineups in the hopes that he is limited in some capacity. All right, anything else we want to talk about? So speaking of those low-owned plays, not much. Sorry, we were dehydrated today. Let's get some more water in. A lot to talk about. So if we look at the low-owned plays, they're not going to scream, wow, I got to get overweight on these guys in my player pool. It's Ricky Pearsall, $4,800, whose game log might be more disappointing than Deebo's lately. Has 1.5 DraftKings points. One catch in the last 4 weeks, which is crazy for a guy who looked good coming off his shooting off injured reserve. We saw a 17-point performance back in Week 10. Beat reporters and some fans are calling for Ricky Pearsall to get more involved and not just throw it to freaking Juwan Jennings every play. So we'll see. Again, not a guy we're excited to play, but he's going to be super low-owned. And he's a talented guy. First-round rookie this year. So Pearsall's a guy we mix into our high-risk lineups. Who else we got down here? We talked about Keyshawn Vaughn. Blake Corum's probably the most interesting of the group. We have him 10% or less owned tonight. And again, the Rams hate giving anyone the ball in their backfield that is not named Kyren Williams. We know that. Blake Corum has seen some spike weeks in terms of usage. Spike weeks for him is like 20% of the snaps, maybe 30% of the snaps. But he did have 4 red zone opportunities last week. And I think that was just more situationally. It wasn't like they tried to get him involved in the red zone. It was his drive. And during his drive, they had more plays in the red zone. Oftentimes they'll rotate drives. Kyren will get 2-3 drives, then Corum will get a drive. It's not like they're putting him in situationally. Either way, he is underperforming this year. We look at Corum, has 40-plus touches, doesn't have a single touchdown to show for it this year. Again, not necessarily meaning he's going to score a touchdown tonight, but he is underperforming. And again, we're just grasping at straws, reasons to play low-owned guys on this showdown slate tonight. Corum could be a guy that if he gets the variance working in his favor, and we know typically it does for guys who are talented, and he passes the eye test, right? Most of his other metrics look good. He was a highly touted rookie this year. It's not like he's some scrub that's underperforming. Talented guy, just hasn't gotten the end zone, has missed a couple plays that could spike his fantasy performance. And at $3,200 won't be popular. He's a guy that we'll be looking to play. And again, it's a short week. Maybe they give Kyren less touches. Either way, we're looking for some variance, and Corum could possibly provide that tonight. We talked about Tutu Atwell. We talked about Colby Parkinson. Those guys will be more popular in small field GPPs than they will in large field GPPs. So you're playing small field, expect these guys to get over 20% owned. But for Atwell and Parkinson, they may not exceed 20% in the largest GPPs just because of the more lineups and how the field builds their lineups. They're not going to punt as much as you will in small field GPPs. So just keep that in mind. Depending on the contest you play, you may count Atwell or Parkinson as a high-owned play in your lineup construction versus in your large field GPPs. All right, I think that'll do it for this video. Covered mostly everything we need to cover. Interesting game. I think it'll be tough, but we have some clear edges if we want to pursue them. We have to push them pretty hard in terms of Rams heavy constructions, some of the low-owned plays. And again, we'll update our ownership probably after this video releases. So you can check out in our Occupy model or in our lineup builder where we have Deebo. Because that, again, I want to play Deebo so much based on the comments, but I don't want to play him if he's going to be the most popular player on the slate. So ownership will dictate how we play Deebo Samuel tonight. So make sure you check out our daily plug at OccupyFantasy.com. We'll run through the entire slate in detail, tell you how to build lineups for specific contests on both sites, overall slate notes, great roadmap for the slate, and our builder and our model will update with projections and ownership throughout the day. Again, we appreciate everyone who tunes in for the free videos, but if you want that extra edge, you want to know everything you possibly can for your paid DraftKings and FanDuel lineups tonight, check out OccupyFantasy.com where you can get that info. Again, subscribe to the channel to get notified when we post videos for these slates in the coming weeks. Finally, a thumbs up will help us out, helps more than you know for the channel. Any questions, comment on the video. I will happily get back to you before the slate starts. Tonight at 8:15 p.m. Eastern, I'm Brian from Occupy. Good luck and enjoy tonight's Rams and 49ers showdown slate.